Submit to God, resist the devil, he'll flee from you. That's the key, that's the plan. Submit to God. How many of us would say we've done that? Or maybe just on levels because we're still growing. There's the grace to get us through and to see. Submission. What does that mean? You know what? One thing I know, it's submit to one another in love. Submit to authority. Submit to Christ in others. I always think of this analogy of the manager of a big company, and there was a car park attendant who was given the authority to tell people where to park on a certain day because there was a big meeting. And then comes the manager and the car park attendant who was given that authority tells the manager where to park. And the manager didn't listen, just usurped his authority and said, I'm parking here, I'm the manager. What has he done? He's just taken over his authority. You see, we can do that in the body of Christ. We need to learn to submit to the gifts, to Christ in others. Because, friends, some people have gifts that you do not have. And if you don't learn to submit to that, you're not learning to submit to Christ. How about that in a marriage? How does that work? Submit to one another in love. You see, even in our marriage, my wife and I, Gail has gifts that I don't have. Do I submit to them? Or do I try and usurp authority and say what I want to do? You know, there'll be often times, probably most of the time, where Gail will see something and say, well, I don't believe God is taking us that way. I don't see this. She has that seer's gift on her. She has that waiting, where me, I want to run ahead. See, I need to learn to submit to that. Submit to that authority. Submit to the authority of Christ in her, the hope of glory. And there's gifts that I have where I see things and I know things, and Gail likewise need to submit to that. You know, I believe as a body we need to deal with these things in a marriage. You see, if you haven't submitted to one another in love, then you're in for all sorts of problems because you haven't really submitted to Christ in the other person. We talk about submission. Submit to God, resist the devil, he'll flee from you. But sometimes the enemy can be active in a marriage because people have not submitted to one another in love. You know, you hear that misunderstanding where people say, women submit. You know, I'm the authority, I'm the head of the house, this is how it goes and that's it. That's not submission. Submit to one another in the fear of God, in the love of God. Submit to one another in love, because each of us have callings. You want to learn to break through and break free in the call and the plan and the purposes of God? Then learn to submit to one another in love. This is why we see so many marriage failures, so many breakups, because people have not learned to submit. And what it is at the end of the day, they're really not submitting to God, Christ in the person.